AskR did by, deleted. Police officers of Reddit, what are you thinking when you see cases like George Floyd? Deleted. For all the police officers here, what would the charges be if one of the bystanders pulled the police officer off of the poor guy? Wow, thanks for gold. Assault on a police officer, obstruction of justice, and probably resisting arrest, depending on state laws of course, that gets tossed in as an easy one to charge, but usually gets played off in court. I'm a former police officer, and so have had plenty of training in physical restraint of individuals being arrested. There is no police academy training officers to kneel on someone's neck to subdue them. That's how you kill a person. There is extensive training on how to avoid seriously injuring a person while restraining them, and I guarantee you every one of these officers was trained to never strike a person in the neck or choke them. The officer who killed him is very clearly liable for manslaughter at the very least, and I think the other officers who stood by have some accountability as well, because they knew damn well that was not how you handle a person, and should have stepped up. Deleted. Not a local, I'm a Fed 5 years into the job. George Floyd was murdered and it's fucking disgusting. We're trained that anything involving the neck is a no-go and is considered deadly force. We were also trained that if you make an arrest in a prone position, you search and then immediately move them onto their side or a seated position because the risk of asphyxiation is so great. If a suspect says they can't breathe, believe them and take measures to correct it. This training is reinforced at least twice a year in our use of force training. These officers deserve to spend the rest of their lives in prison. It's reassuring to hear this. Any suggestions on how employment screening could be improved to avoid letting people like this join the ranks and tarnish the reputation of all the good cops? Retired after 28 years. Nothing less than murder. All the guys I worked with would never have considered doing something like that. You treat combative in custodies once they are secured as human beings. Nothing should be personal. Once they've been subdued and you are safe as an officer, you stand him up, pat him down and understand that your arrestee is at a low point in his life. Give him some dignity and you'll generally get his respect. It works 90+% of the time. That man was subdued and nobody should have been on him at that point. Deleted. I'm a police officer in California. I am absolutely disgusted by the officer's actions. When someone is in our custody, you must treat them properly. I don't care if they are arrested for murder or forgery. They are a human with a story and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. I had tears streaming down my face watching the video of George Floyd. We swore to protect our communities and that's what we set out to do every day. Putting a knee into the neck of a handcuffed man for an extended period of time isn't protecting. A man has lost his life due to the gross negligence of an evil person. May he rest in peace. Makes it harder to protect communities when you lose the trust of the public. These situations hurt you all, unfortunately. Cop here. Disgusted. There are 1,000 reasons why this shouldn't have happened. Simple, easy, steps that should have been taken. Lessons that policing has learned over the past 200 years and basic things taught in every academy. Make no mistake, this was murder. Maybe not premeditated murder, but nonetheless murder. I will be angry if those officers do not get indicted. He's apparently been involved in at least 2 other deaths, including shooting a fleeing suspect in the back. I don't know, given that history, premeditation seems reasonable. Didn't the same happen in New York a few years ago with Eric Garner being put in a chokehold? Yup, sure did. All the cops got off. Deleted. Current sheriff's deputy from the Midwest here. It's a constant point emphasized in defensive tactics training that you don't choke someone or go for the neck. Unless a suspect has the upper hand and your curtains are closing and it's your last resort to survive. Obviously that wasn't the situation here. Deleted. I was a cop in the military. In the police academy this was one of the things they taught us not to do as it could crush the windpipe. The only time I was ever taught to use chokes and neck holds was in combat training for deployments. But when we got back we always had to attend retraining classes to relearn what we can do stateside. It's amazing that time and time again you see military saying this is exactly not what to do, but for some reason the civilian trainers seem to forget to teach the same. Would I rather be a POW to an American soldier vs American cop? I'll take soldier every time. I work for a US federal bureau but am not a local police officer. All 4 cops need to go to jail. Derek Chauvin, the cop with the knee on George's neck, should have gone to jail long ago. The guy apparently has a history of doing this. This is his 3rd time in 15 years. Black people need to keep fighting and white Asian Latino people need to support them. Justice for cases like this won't come easy, and it won't come soon. But if they keep fighting, I truly believe that one day, eventually, it will come. My former local precinct. They did nothing except eat pizza and hang out at the gas station across from where this happened. Their whole precinct needs to be investigated. They were never bothered with doing their job. Retired. It disgusts me as the job is difficult enough as it is, working mostly in sensitive neighborhoods. Brutality like this makes it far more difficult. How difficult was it for you to build community trust? Did you have to continuously fight against atrocities such as the recent cases, or was your community more sheltered from those issues? Serious question to the police officers participating in this discussion. Obviously there are a myriad of factors that possibly contributed to this incident, from poor training, to an officer being unfit for duty, etc. My question is, how is it possible that the 3 other officers on the scene took no steps to intervene, or at the very least, check on the status of the victim? Is there any reason for their lack of awareness or decision to stand aside while they, along with many other bystanders, can clearly see the man dying in front of them? What justification, if any, is possible in this situation? Ex-tribal officer, fuck if I know. We all had our heated moments, but you learn to tag out other officers when you need to. If someone is getting upset, you tap them, whisper the "you'll take it" and to take a breather, and now you have a fresh calm perspective. That other cops should have tapped out his partner instead of standing there like a slack-jawed moron. Disgusted, especially by the frequency of these events. Glad that I work in a place where we're trained for years before we ever put on a uniform that communication is our greatest tool. Sad to know that this is going to happen again and again. As a Baltimore resident, do you think it's just the sheer size of the force that lets these situations continue to happen? I don't envy the officers who have to essentially work in a war zone, but sometimes it feels like there's no light at the end of our tunnel for making the city safer and for ending police corruption and misconduct. Deleted. Thanks for your thoughts. It seems like most officers have had training pertaining to positional asphyxiation when they have someone in handcuffs. Can you elaborate on that at all? I have a degree in law enforcement and work in corrections in Minnesota. My thoughts are, fuck that guy. Nobody is taught to put their knee on a guy's neck and leave it there until he passes out and dies. He may as well have had his hands around the man's neck. If I were to go off the video evidence, the officer should be arrested for murder. That's the crazy thing about this case, it couldn't be more blatant. The footage was clear, long-lasting and heart-wrenching. If there isn't hell to pay with this clear of evidence, then protests are absolutely justified. When I went through the academy in 1990, I had to complete 480 hours of basic mandate training. At that time, someone who wanted to be a hairstylist had to complete 2,400 hours of training. That might be one of the issues as mentioned previously. I'd put a serious tag if I were you. I dunno, I don't think it's sort of thing people joke about. That said, I reckon there'll be a lot of not a police officer but comments. My roommate's only been a cop for a few years. but he got into a huge rant about how that is not how you choke someone in a way to detain them. The cop should be tried in court for manslaughter at the very least, and if they think they can make a case for murder, go for it. Fucking horrified. Regardless of the act committed, you just don't odd that to people. I seriously question the culture on that team. Edit, and some people are being a bit dense. I am from another continent. Yes, other countries exist. Yes, I have publicly declared my feelings for this incident on other social media, where my name actually shows. No, I won't do it on here, because if we have social media accounts without names on them, they must conform to our regulations, and therefore I have a place to express myself as a cop and a person at the same time. No, I don't care if you don't like that. The other officers standing around couldn't care less what he was doing. He died in the middle of 3 other officers and bystanders. Their team is entirely fucked. I have to ask this as an infantry war veteran for the US. Why are police officers not held to the same standard as our troops? If I were to fire upon or kill an innocent bystander in a war zone, I would go to prison for murder. How is it that police officers do not suffer the same repercussions? It simply does not make sense. Murder by positional asphyxiation. Former correctional officer. Once they are in cuffs, as long as they are not spitting, flailing about, or otherwise being extremely aggressive, that's a no-go. Even if they are doing the aforementioned, that's still a no-go. Yes, restrain them, but humanely. Sit them down or lay them on their side, but never apply deadly force once they are in cuffs. Doesn't matter if the individual is yelling threats, slander, or being in a chat. Don't do it. That's textbook. Yeah, just don't do it. When I was in training, we studied the use of force continuum like it was scripture. Every day was a scenario. Every day there were pop quizzes. Every day, we talked about it, discussed it, and made sure we all knew what it meant, what it was, and the proper techniques. Once they're in cuffs, that's it. No strikes, holds, or anything more than maintaining contact. Charge 'em all, lock 'em up, throw away the key. Charge the department for lack of training. Launch a third-party IA investigation into what happened, as well as into the IA department. Chances are, there's a fuck ton of corruption. Size of the force shouldn't matter when it comes to proper training. End of story. Disgrace. My uncle is a retired police officer, and I called him about this. He said that it's horrible that people like this exist. It has a negative impact on both the police community and the black community. It stirs up animosity between the two, and they end up not trusting. What if a person in the African American community needs to call the police, but don't trust them, fear them? Not all police officers are like this. Many are great people, but the growing number of cases is alarming. Another problem is that because of police unions, officers who should face serious repercussions aren't. Growing number of videos. We don't know how many cases were hushed up or ignored before there were so many people with cameras in their pocket.